Well, you're gorgeous, and you're gorgeously back in a role that it's a dream role. It's
Yes.
perfect for an actress who wants to explore different area because you have the action, the acting, the mythological part.
Yes,
So-
it is. It's a really amazing character. She's a very strong character, and you know, I get to be an action hero, and which I never thought I'd be able to do. And there's something so sort of empowering about that. And also in this film, I think it's a little bit different than the first film. And now we're a little bit closer to the books. I'm blonde in this movie, whereas I was brunette in the first film. The character's blonde in the books. And you see a little bit more of her vulnerable, weaker side, and you sort of dive into her character and see why she is who she is. And that was really cool to play, and sort of a new exploration of the character.
If I'm not wrong, before the first movie, you were the only one who actually have been to Greece before and read the book.
Yes.
Is that true?
I think so.
Is that still like that? Like,
Well, I
you
didn't. I read the book. I hadn't heard of the books until I got the screen test, and then I read the book on the plane on the way to the screen test, and I loved it because I didn't have the script, so I had to read something to know what it was about. And I had been to Greece. My best friend in New York is Greek, and we had gone to the Greek islands, and I love Athens, and it was cool to go back for the press junket last time. But so I was familiar with Greek mythology and with the book.
And it's a great, amazing way also for, children and teenagers to look at a film like that. And even if, of course, there is just the fantasy part of the mythological, it's still fantasy and it's
Yes.
still myth. And that's a great way to learn in somehow.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a really cool story, and you do learn a lot. And if you're familiar with Greek mythology, it's an interesting telling of the stories. And it's cool to be like, oh, I know who that is. I remembered reading about him in history class or whatever it was. And I think the stories are incredibly compelling and fascinating and complex. And I think Percy Jackson is in addition to being an adventure and an exciting, suspenseful story, there's also these characters that are flawed, that are overcoming weaknesses and becoming stronger people throughout the story, and are able to overcome everything that they're struggling with to save the world. And I think that's a great, inspiring, relatable message.
Exactly. If it was something you could do to save the world, what would be the first task you would take?
In real life?
Yes.
Oh, there's a lot. I mean, I think, I work with a charity that helps young women in developing countries to get an education. And I think that's a really important thing for everybody to be able to get an education. I think that especially, where women aren't allowed to, I think that the more we know, the better the world will be. And I think that that's a huge step forward. In addition, there's so many things you could do, but I think that's a big part.
You're very strong and grounded. Do you think it's also part of your Italian heritage?
I think so. I mean, I think, I unfortunately don't speak Italian. I've been to Italy. I love Italy. And, growing up, we always had, it's on my dad's side that I'm Italian, and he cooked a lot of Italian food and pasta. And when we went to Rome, he knew exactly where we should go to eat and what we should order. And I love Italy, and I love my Italian heritage.
From your mother's side, you are Hungarian, right?
Yes.
So how has been part so much of different, I mean, you're American, but,
Yes.
Your roots are European. So feeling a little bit citizen of the world, do you
Yeah.
think it helps?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting, I am American, and then, knowing the stories of where my parents came from, where my grandparents came from, and everything that they had to do to, get me where I am today, and my brother and my sister, and the opportunities I have now. And, all the, it's really interesting, and it was a different world, some of the stories that, my mother will tell me that her grandmother told her, and it's really fascinating.
It's a little bit like being a mythological kind of film, right?
I guess, yeah.
Get a little bit of here and there.
Yeah.
In a film like that, because of the physical part, you have also to create a particular bond with your castmate, right?
Yes, and I think we bonded really well in the first film, me, Logan, Brandon, and Jake, and they're some of my closest friends in LA. And it's amazing that they're just wonderful, wonderful people. And Levin Rambin and Douglas Smith are in this film, and they're wonderful, talented actors and great people. And I feel really lucky that I get along with them so well. When you're having a bad day and you're stressed out, you know, there are people who can make you laugh, and people who you can rely on and trust. And that's a really exciting thing, because it makes it a joy to go to work every day because you're in an environment that you love being in.